Also joining the conversation right now by phone is Congressman Charles Boustany. Welcome, Congressman. Thanks very much for joining us.
With you this morning.
What are your thoughts this morning after another horrific act, this time in Lafayette?
Well, this is a terrible tragedy, and my prayers go out to the families and victims. What we know is that, and I think you just reported, that the gunman seems to have been acting alone. He committed suicide on the scene. One other victim died on the scene. I got reports that a third victim died later at the hospital. A total of 9 were injured. A terrible tragedy. And right now we're trying to get all the details straight, the facts. Our law enforcement folks on the ground are doing a wonderful job of piecing this together. It's just a horrible situation, and we will get the information. We'll dig through all this, and then certainly release information as it becomes available. I have gotten word that this individual had some sort of a criminal record. I don't know the details yet, and law enforcement has not released his identity as of this point in time, but it appears it was a lone perpetrator.
Yeah, we're waiting on a news conference from authorities in about 10 minutes to find out more about the suspect. But, Congressman, let me ask you, the debate obviously has quickly turned toward gun control, getting guns off of the streets, as well as mental health and identifying people who need help to get ahead of these things. Where are you on these issues?
Well, this has been a very heated issue across the country in light of many of the events that have occurred. And let me just say, this is not the time to take knee-jerk action about what happened with this particular incident. This is a nation that has embraced Second Amendment rights, but with that comes responsibility. And I think the fact of the matter is, in a nation like this, as big and diverse, there will be problems from time to time, and problems will arise when guns get into the hands of people who should not have them, whether they're criminals or individual mental health problems. And I think we need to continue to look as to how we can refine the system. But you don't want to run to the opposite side of this deal, of this argument, and abridge the rights of individuals that are enshrined in our Constitution. So I think this is an important debate to have. I think we need to be sober about it and thoughtful. And I think first and foremost with this case, we need to get the facts and understand exactly what happened.
What are you looking for mostly to learn in this press conference?
Well, I want to know exactly what happened, if there are any other details in this. I would be curious to know if this individual, to what extent he had a criminal record, and if so, how did he get guns? Was he in possession of a gun legally or illegally? I would like to know what type of mental health history he had. I mean, these are really important issues. But I think right now, a couple things. One, let's get the facts of what happened. Let's be respectful of the families and their victims and the victims. And as Bobby Jindal said earlier, I think our community kind of needs to get together and understand what happened. But the fact of the matter is, get the facts, learn from those facts, and see what we can do from there.
Dagen McDowell.
Congressman, because we have gun laws in this country. There's a 3-day waiting period. And in the case of the shooter in Charleston, South Carolina, Dylan Roof, he should not have had a gun. The FBI conceding that the National Criminal Background Check System and the examiner missed the fact that he had admitted to drug possession. So why should the focus initially be on making sure that the laws that we have today and the checks and balances that we have in place today actually work?
And that's been my official position in all of this. We do have gun laws, and the key is to ensure that those gun laws are tight, they work, and that people don't slip around, and that the system works. Fact is, we don't want guns getting into the hands of criminals and people with repeat criminal offenses. We don't want guns getting into the hands of those with serious mental health problems. And we need to, certainly we need to pay attention to our mental health system. As a physician, I have deep concerns about deficiencies in our mental health system. There are things that we could do to improve that.
Right.
But I think with the laws, let's make sure that these laws are being enforced and that the gun, the background checks are working.
Joe Tacopina, you mentioned earlier that this is going to spark lots of debate about mental health as well as carrying guns.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the aftermath, right? I mean, but I just don't, we could all talk about policies and putting policies in place to identify people earlier. I just don't know how you go about singling out and identifying all those people who are in need of help, who are in need of either help or confinement. Because they're so mentally disturbed, and clearly this person was. You don't do this unless, but were there warning signs or were there not? And some people just snap. You have it in you, but you just snap, and there's just no way we as a society are going to be able to identify and weed out all those people. Unfortunately, sometimes until it's too late.
Yeah, and we're watching the scenes in Louisiana, Congressman, and our condolences, obviously, to you and to the entire community. But the American people are now looking at yet another shooting and wondering, how is it possible that this keeps happening? What is your gut? I mean, what are you thinking this morning in terms of why we continue to see these things happen?
Well, Lafayette's my home. I grew up there. It's a wonderful city. It's a family-oriented, family-oriented city. I've been to that movie theater many, many times with my wife. My family's been there. And we first question is, why us? How did this happen? And I think that's what we need to do right now. Let's look at this case. Let's let the law enforcement officials work through all the details and get the facts on the table. Let's see if we had, this individual who slipped through our background checks and so forth. Let's learn as much as we can before we start to generalize about policy. But it causes us all to reflect here in this country on how fragile life can be,
right?
How quickly things can change, and this is a time obviously for some mourning and grief and grieving, a time for prayer. It's a time for us to gather around the families who are affected by this and the victims, and let's see if we can make the best of this and learn something from it and do better.
Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciated this on a tough day. Our condolences to you and the entire community. Charles Boustany there joining us.